Welcome back to the Techops Show. In the second episode, we take a deeper dive into the more philosophical aspects of technology. We try and ask the deeper question of how is it we can contribute to deeper layers of the technology stack, transcending beyond the application layer and into the platform and framework layer. We try and break down some of the philosophical assumptions behind some of the technologies we build. And we try and answer the question of how is it that, given our backgrounds as South Africans, we can contribute more effectively in that layer of the technology stack. Hope you enjoy the episode, and we'll catch you in the next one. Because I also have a critique on this concept of smart contracts. The idea that if I can take the rules and remove them from trusting people and move on to trusting algorithms, it somehow automatically makes the world better. But then you have this philosophical question of, what if I have the wrong rules?
Who made the algorithms?
And now I've given these algorithms so much power. For example, you now have put some smart contract in the blockchain to control, let's say, the price of your property or the stock felt. And you had assumptions about it, and you've locked it in to the point where you can't change it because that's what we want. No one should change it.
POW, because of POW or because of POS.
No, you can't change it. You can change the smart contract.
Is it because now application is developed by you?
No. You can make an alteration.
Make a change to it.
Yes.
Oh, you can.
But so your existing one, you can change it, but you can, let's say, build another one and migrate your people
to
from the previous one to the new one, to the better one.
So then
that's how software works. It's going to die. People stop going to use it.
It becomes ancient. Okay.
But then that's how mainly software works, right?
Yeah.
Software, we iterate and then make changes almost every two minutes, right?
Updates, I guess.
We make updates because we see we are flawed as human beings, as we mentioned at the beginning.
But so that's part of the weakness. That we kind of wanted to have a situation where we don't want someone to just decide to change it. Because let's say, someone might wake up and there's a real bug and there's a real issue. I made bad assumptions about property value. Let me change it up. But then someone might wake up and be like, actually, I kind of don't like the way this is going. It's not helping me. Let me change it. So in principle, you kind of don't want to change it. You want to have this perfect rule, just like a contract that I read on the get-go. And I say, okay, cool.
If I get into this is how I want it to be,
And if these terms are met, this happens. Now, the biggest issue is that when you go from this dictatorship, as I call it, of people and institutions to a dictatorship of algorithms, you need to be very, very sure that those algorithms, those rules that you're putting in are worthy of you submitting to them. All right? And there are a lot of issues around the philosophical implications on that. Knowing that right now you might have a certain idea of what you think makes sense, but then down the line it might not be great. And another issue with
things set in stone aren't really attractive from the philosophical standpoint.
So I think that's but of course you can adapt it. And one of the biggest hacks in Ethereum revolved around this issue that they had a smart contract which had a bug and lots of money was lost. And they actually had to make a decision to step in and reverse the basically intervene in the blockchain.
They had to now say that this can be changed now. So they changed the rules now. Of saying
exactly.
Which can't be touched.
That's the thing. Anything that's built by human can be fixed.
Understood.
Right? Can be changed. You just need, especially from a developer standpoint, anything can be changed, right? That's where, a second example, if not Ethereum, look at EOS. When it launched, same thing. It launched and then things went haywire. Then they decided as a committee, say, okay, cool, this is what we want to do. This is wrong. Let's revert everything and then, I guess, get the money back and then move on with life.
That's what we thought we were running away from.
Yes.
Having to have these big brother boys who can decide that they can pop in and change the rules of the game when they want. And that's a common theme in the crypto space, is this philosophical, as they call it, hyper-libertarian mentality, where we don't want any government intervention. It's all about individual sovereignty, where, live and let live. You do you, I do me. No, government involvement. And so that's a very common element in the whole crypto space versus more your traditional, okay, cool, we need trust, we need institutions, we need these smarter people or these experts who know more than us to maybe help us where we can't help ourselves, all right? And yeah, and I think
so that's why you'll have that's where I stand mainly. It's like you have the like you can never have 100% of everything, and you should not have 100% of everything. Okay. That's me. That's where I stand, right? Where you'll see, okay, cool, you have the blockchain, what the the theory, the fundamental aspect of it, where it should be.
Okay.
And then you have the world.
Yeah.
Right? The world, human beings want you to control stuff. We know that. There will be, like, everything that happens, there will be a committee somewhere trying to regulate whatever the case, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So we can never ever have a system that is trustless.
Sovereign from us, yes.
No. So, but then what's nice thing about crypto is that it focuses mainly on, I guess, trustless systems. We know for a fact it won't be 100% because by definition, where it starts from is a human being creating it.
Right.
It will never be. So we know at least 80%, it's the focus. While with the other alternative system, which is the one we currently live on, depends on people making decisions.
Which means that its corruptibility is also a change. It's a changing variable because at any point a person could corrupt it different from how they corrupted 100%. It yesterday. Okay.
So you just need to now look at pros and cons of every system, fully understand them. Don't be naive and say the other one is better because of I don't know. There's no wrong in the other one.
There's no such thing.
Yes, there's no such thing. No, you just need to weigh your options. Okay, this one is 80% foolproof.
Better than
the other one is
60, whatever.
Yeah, which one am I going with and why? Have your own reasons and then go with it. So that's
so you feel like we need to get to a point where these coexist. The centralized and decentralized.
No, I've been saying that since me and Fabrice have been talking about this, disagreeing with this from day one.
All right.
Right? Yeah. I've always said regulation will always come in.
It will always come in. And
that one
I had a question on it earlier.
Yeah.
I had a question on it earlier.
It's inevitable. It will always come in, and then as we see slowly, it's slowly creeping in. And it's like we can't do...
Over-regulation is going to centralize this whole thing.
Over-regulation maybe is bad. We need to fight against it. But then regulation will be there.
Yes, that we can all agree on.
I think that's obviously, if you take it back to philosophy, I'm a big fan of philosophy, and you look at Plato's so-called Meditations on the Republic, which basically was a discourse on how do you best organize society. And to cut the long story short, his conclusion was this ideal world of the philosopher kings, basically the world of the experts.
Sure.
Where you have these super people who are the smartest, and they are also the people who are the least, because they're so obsessed with knowledge and learning, and they're also not the most greediest and ambitious, etc.
Yeah. And then?
But then the long story short is that, we've kind of run that experiment now, the so-called technocratic world, where you've got your experts who come up with the regulation, whatever, but we've seen that they become corrupt. The philosophers become corrupt. They are not sincere and sold out to being pure to whatever knowledge system they claim to have. And hence, we want to take the knowledge of the philosophers and put them in the computers. And the computers will be better executors and stewards of the knowledge, the algorithms, the rules, the contracts, the expectations that we have than the philosophers. And I don't think it's 50-50. I think we need to move more towards more computers and algorithms. There is a danger to it. And obviously with things like AI, we can more aggressively, bridge and limit the amount of human intervention that exists. But, as I mentioned, I am a critique also of that approach because we can get it wrong. What if our knowledge systems are wrong? What if our assumptions are wrong?
And
then we put that in the systems, and then they become the new dictators, aka the robot apocalypse.
They mirror what we are doing in the system. I understand.
And they show to us just how flawed we are with bigger consequences. We can hold, it's like the whole classic example of the AI car that's driving up the street.
Having to pick
between the young, little boy and the old man. All right. And what will it do? What values will it adopt? All right.
Whose values? the developers' values. Right now, sorry to this,
and that's
is
a more
completely
controversial
unrelated,
topic. Yeah,
but
developers'
Tesla has
values.
a problem right now with that because their system cannot recognize black people because the developers were using white people in testing phase. So Tesla is picking black people over white people in terms
it's
of...
not specific to Tesla.
That's a general
It's just AI driving
machine learning
driving
It's a general machine learning thing.
Yeah.
So right now you see something like that. It's the developer becomes the system. Your character as a developer now is put in onto the system, and
of course,
this is just now you over and over again. It's an uninterrupted you. It's an unchanging you. It's a you in rock form. It's a you that doesn't adjust. It's not flexible. It's not about your emotions today or tomorrow. It's the you on that day when you developed and made the system, and that's how we keep it. Is that basically what it is right now?
Yeah, that's why. Like, I guess you have multiple systems, right? You'll have your academia side of things, which you'll try to find a non-biased way of doing things. You have different aspects of or different side of that kind of take, right? When everybody comes into play, and then we say, okay, cool, we've done our research, and then this research leads us to this point. We're developing it. This is how we're doing it. So we're hoping after doing that, that will be the non-biased system that we've created, which is obviously we know that it never be 100%.
Yeah.
But then based on all the information that I've got, if I'm trying to develop something right now, let's say machine learning algorithm right now, let's say I go through all the papers that I need to go to. I look at a specific algorithm.
Yeah.
That algorithm is I guess the main one in industry based on maybe something. I'll go with that, and then I'm hoping that those researchers are good enough to a point where everything is good. I can adopt it and use it. Sometimes I don't care. I just care about getting my result. I get some algorithm, whatever it is, run with it, and then deploy.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping with a bigger organization, they'll go through, especially for sensitive and big, projects, right? Like your AI and then your self-driving cars and whatnot. I'm hoping that they're looking at research from different people, and then obviously in any scientific environment, there'll all be like a standard. This like a standard typically means it was validated by 10 million people.
Peer value, okay, peer review.
Peer review, and this is the good side
yes.
of regulation, because we always bash regulation, but it's extremely necessary because of these things. We don't want bad actors. We need a way in which we can verify that something has met our acceptable criteria of being fair, for example. And I think we can land it here with an interesting thought, given that blockchains specifically are built by developers with certain beliefs, assumptions about what is, let's say, a fairer world, a more accurate world, a more, a world that they envision would be interesting. And we can see the strong, particularly Western libertarian and even the economics that they practice. Typically, they call it Austrian economics.
It's pulling in that direction.
That influences a lot of the protocols we've had. As a South African or as an African, designing a blockchain, how would I go about it to project the ideals of, let's say, our problems, our issues?
Region, yes, your region,
right?
and the people
and
that
to
are
what
gonna be
degree is
using
that just more political hype sentiment that we've adopted now with tech, or is there something interesting to be said about that? As a developer, for example, Bongs, would you build a blockchain any different to, Vitalik or Satoshi, given your context as a South African?
Is it not
and the
maybe
problems you're trying to solve?
Is it not maybe down to now projection of where you're trying to project the coin? Are you trying to have it deploy it in a global community, or are you trying to deploy it in a geographical space? Are you developing for Africa? Are you developing to play on the world stage?
So, hey. So what does it mean to deploy for Africa? What does it mean to deploy for the global stage?
Well, deployment aside, because
not deployment, but then building, deployment, whatever the case may be, right? Yes. So when you started that project, what is it depends on the use case. So if you look at Ethereum or blockchain, right? Go back a little bit, just on your history. one thing you'll see is that they were trying to, like, we haven't mentioned it here, but then now you mentioned Africa, let me add it on there. They tried to solve a problem of, like, everybody can have access to this thing, right? So that's where your M-Pesa and all those kind of technologies are trying to solve. So you don't have to have an identity for you to participate in the financial market.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of blockchain or cryptocurrency.
Fundamentally.
Yes, not fundamentally, but then you can do that. As long as I have internet,
okay,
I'm good to go.
Besides the other
I don't have to have
of actually,
yes.
Okay.
While with your what do you call it? Your systems that you currently have, or your banks and all those kind of stuff, you have to have identity and those kind of stuff. And then in Africa, that's not a good thing, right? Especially when you don't have money. Back in the day, let's say for me to send money from Ethereum from, let's say, America to South Africa, I have to go through a lot of hoops because there's a lot of intermediary people or companies or entities that I need to go through that will take their own fees. With Ethereum or Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general, I pay now, cool, it comes out on the other side. I don't have to go through a lot of hoops, which is a lot of hoops equates to,
there's one hoop now.
Yes, which equates to a lot of financial transactions. Now it's a different case, of course, because of financial fees that we talked about.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, that's one thing, especially with Vitalik. He was trying to solve that problem, that anybody can have access to the financial sector. You don't have to be the 1% people in the world.
Yeah.
Right? So one thing could be, have they achieved that goal? Maybe, maybe not. Cool. Now, if you take away that and focus on, okay, right now, with the technology that we have, which is blockchain, is it solving is it solving African issues? For me, I'll say no, I won't say yes or no, but what I'll say, it depends heavily on the person who builds application on top of that, right? Somebody who built that, the protocol, someone maybe in America, whatever the case, but then me who has to build an application on top of that. I understand the protocol side of things. I can make it cheaper, etc., but then to build an application that suits Africans or that will suit South Africans, to be specific, I have to come from South Africa to understand. I know this is a problem. I can solve it using blockchain because I understand blockchain. This is what I can do, right? Well, one thing is, let's say, something that Fabrice was working on, which is working with schools to make sure that they use blockchain and then make sure everything else is graded and tokenized in the blockchain space.
Okay.
That's one aspect of it. So application layer or use case layer depends on who's building it. Yes, we can get somebody from America, from UK, from whatever, coming in who builds systems for us, but then that depends on you.
But I mean,
let me put you in a bit more of a, let's take it back before the application.
Sure.
And we talk at the protocol level.
Sure.
We've now unpacked that there are a lot of philosophical premises to the protocols. For example, democracy.
Yeah.
We believe that the majority should decide what the truth is. And what the majority, as in the protocol designers, which is why we have proof of work and the concept of the 51% dominance. That is a view that one
That's
holds.
not all protocols.
No, true. Of course.
So you have other protocols who follow the I guess who are more my English disappeared. What I'm looking for. Your Hitler kind of thing. What's the word?
Monopolies, authoritarian.
Dictatorship. That's what they're trying to follow.
Yeah.
Which we were seeing it because of all the things that I mentioned, which is trying to accelerate progress and change.
Yeah, so they keep that control. So they keep that control.
Private blockchains where
if we only focus on Bitcoin and Ethereum, yes, they are more decentralized and more trying to follow the whole thing of democratic.
No, true. I'm not saying that other protocols don't exist.
Okay.
I'm just showing the relationship between a philosophical view and a specific blockchain protocol.
Sure.
Yeah.
To highlight the idea that if I replace the philosophical layer, what do I get? Now, my question is, if I take African philosophies, something as simple as Ubuntu, which
Yeah.
people have to say, you know. And I start with that philosophy.
Sure.
What protocols do I come out with? And as you said, are they already there? Is this even a relevant question? Are we have we universally already encapsulated all possible philosophical frameworks of thought?
Yeah.
Or to what degree are the elements of what Gogo in the township might trust as a valid consensus mechanism, that if a blockchain existed that represented that, it might match more their needs and even more tightly accelerate the kinds of use cases that Gogo can relate with?
Isn't that the lure? Isn't that the lure? The fact that I can make a variation. The fact that Ethereum is saying on this application you can now make.
But Ethereum still uses proof of work.
So you're saying that the fundamentals behind it, the philosophy behind
exactly.
it.
Exactly, and the reason I'm poking at it is because
so what are we saying?
build on existing
So what are we saying now? Is there a gate? Is there a gate for us to now not build on what is, but then to reinvent the wheel in saying that, okay, Bitcoin and Ethereum exist and they have their own philosophies. Is it now a matter of should we have different coins that are just as, fundamental as Bitcoin and Ethereum that will allow for a geographical philosophy as well to take root? I mean, if we have...
Doesn't have to be geographical.
No, so Fabrice, what he's saying is that...
I mean, philosophies are geographical.
What I jumped into...
we adopt them. Yes, we adopt them as well over international borders, but they are mainly geographical, especially when you look at Africa. Our beliefs are centered in where we are. Like,
I get that part. Let's focus here, right? Let's focus here. Because that's what I said, right? Remember when I was speaking, I was mainly focusing on the application layer, right? So Fabrice is saying, for now, let's scrap that for now. Just for a little bit, focus on the protocol layer.
Yeah.
What can you change? What can you implement? Or philosophies that you can implement, whatever, on a protocol layer. We understand, yes, you can change things on the application layer, it's use case based, blah, blah, blah. But then on a protocol layer, what can you do? Or what can you build or change or modify that can suit the South African
alignment with
context,
all
right? Let's forget about other stuff. Focus on that.
Okay, cool.
So if you're putting it that way, Fabrice, I'll say, okay, cool. So for me, dumb thing to say, but then let me just focus on it right now. What I'll say is, if I have to solve that problem, I have to come up with a protocol that will help or that will be beneficial to people that I know, or South Africa. Obviously, South Africa, we're very diverse. So I'll speak from people that I understand and then use cases that I understand. I'll build something, number one, it has to be cheap. That's number one.
Yeah.
Be accessible, right? Initially, that's what it was, right? If I can make sure that those two things, there could be other stuff, but the one that comes to mind right now is those two aspects. Being accessible by anybody.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, being cheap. Have those protocols, I'm good to go. And then anybody can build on top of that. I won't come into
because those variations now will be specific, but then the one that you've you've blanketed what everybody needs, cheap and accessible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me press you a little bit there. All right.
Yeah.
Cheap, accessible, awesome.
You can talk about the internet, etc.
True. You can go on about all these other elements.
Sure.
But let's unpack it like this.
Sure.
Libertarianism, democracy, all these things.
Yep.
They came out of, let's say, Greek thought, Greek civilization, Romans. So a lot of, let's say, Western civilization, or the average, let's say, white person would have grown up reading about the Romans, the Greeks, Aristotle, the concepts of logic. And when they sat and they built the protocol, he didn't even think and say, let me build something for white Western people. He said, how do I organize a fair system? And based on the principles coming from his cultural orientation, history, his knowledge of what fairness is, he articulates this thing. Now, what for me is interesting is that obviously as a black person, my ancestors organized society different to the Greeks. They went about thinking about fairness, questions of equality, questions of fairness in a different way. Now, when I articulate myself, I'm not starting first by saying, how do I build a black thing? How do I take my experiences about what fairness is, given how I grew up, the world around me, and articulate a blockchain protocol? And once again, it might be an irrelevant question. Maybe it could be that universally we've all fundamentally plugged in and have the core things checked already.
Or maybe really
but is there something to be said about the fact that the systems of knowledge that we base the technologies on can vary if the fundamental philosophical assumptions change.
I think
Is there something at a black protocol level that can compete with Western civilization at that philosophical level, or have they covered it all already?
But then, okay, sorry. I'm just thinking of it this way then.
Yeah.
When you then express your fundamentals, right, or your founding principles, when you express them, you don't express them through I am black, so I'm creating for black. You express them through I feel fair is and I feel for
but it will come from a black context.
But then it'll be from a... So then maybe it's more about if our people have the ability to create, then their creation will express from where they create, as long as you have the ability to create. If I give you the skills to create, you'll create from your philosophy. Your philosophy will then be expressed in your creation.
That's a given.
So I feel like it's not a matter of, should we worry that, no. There will be variations. Once we start creating coins, once we, as black people in South Africa, in Ghana, in Nigeria, once you sit down with a group of your friends and you're like, we're creating a coin we're creating a coin. Obviously, you're thinking about your people and your environment when you create that coin.
Yeah, but the question I'm asking is not, but I'm even asking, is this even relevant? The question is, from what has been created already, we can see that there are certain philosophical ideas, which obviously are informed by people's idea of fairness, etc., etc.
Sure.
Yeah.
As a black person, is it even worth me having this question in my head? AKA, if I go back in my ancestry and I study, let's say, the Zulu culture, the Congolese culture, the whatever culture, and I see different schools of thinking, different ideas of what a fair world would be, different versions of what trust means.
Yes.
All right? And I look at that and I try and now re-articulate these assumptions. I replace, let's say, democracy with some other thing. And my question is, have they covered it all on a philosophical level, or is there something that we can still plug in at that layer of thinking that can maybe translate into more and interesting protocols that can work better for us? And that's a question that I feel is never articulated well enough in the black African tech narrative, because it's always centered around, okay, we want more inclusivity.
No, but then
there's never really a strong peg to what does that even mean?
So right now, I'm actually struggling to understand. No, not struggling to understand. I'm struggling to find a way to answer what you're talking about. Why? Because it's like, okay, cool. Fundamentally, as Africans, what can we add that's outside what's already there? Can we do something fundamentally different as Africans?
I can give an answer.
Is there room for change? Yes. Is there room for change? Yes. There's
Focus on not change.
Sorry.
Focus on the element of
can we add more of our identity?
Let's talk about fairness.
Identity in it.
Yeah. So here's
fairness. Let's talk about fairness.
Here's an example. All right. For example, the Greeks hypothetically invented democracy. Yeah. They've obsessed with this idea that everybody should have a voice, and it's something we've all bought into and we all love. Let's say my ancestors believed more, let's say, in a chiefdom system. Yes. All right, and I could be wrong, all right, in the way I articulate this, where that there are people who are somehow endowed with more wisdom than others, and this, let's say, equates to a certain ratio of us. And we believe strongly in us, and society works better when you identify these people and there's certain properties, and then we elevate them, and we believe that works better for us.
Okay.
So what that means then, I might come to the point where I'm like, actually, EOS makes sense. The fact that we have a council of people who have nodes that have more powers, and they better represent the community.
Yes.
And they're able to, let's say, in a system of 12, council members, come up with a better way of how the thing should work. And as a result, given that system of thinking,
that one for business, it's a more less deeper questions than what I thought you were actually asking.
Wow. Okay.
So that's why I couldn't answer it, but then now you've simplified it. It's super simple now.
This is why I said there is a change we can make. There are changes, alterations. There's alterations we can make. Now, are those alterations things that will make it better? Now we can
my question is, can you identify actual philosophy. That's where for me the depth comes in. Can you identify something that you can say is uniquely philosophically black
African,
that the Westerns have not covered, that we can replace at that layer? Because I feel like we keep making noise about the fact that something should come in there, but I have not encountered
what it
a
is.
unique, mature layer at that point that has not been covered already, that I can plug in and be like, this is missing.
but now it's too
It
late.
feels
It's
more
too
at
late
the
for that.
aesthetic layer.
No, it's too late for that.
That we're trying to change
because
things,
we've
but
been
not at
living.
the core layer.
We've been living in a. Shucks, why are we being political? Okay. Anyway, we've been living in a.
We've forgotten about blockchain.
Yes.
No, but you did say this is where we landed,
Shucks.
right? And as a
Yeah, because
point
now
you
it's more
landed-
philosophical, political kind of realm, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not an expert in that. Fabrice is a super expert in that. But then from my perspective, I'll say this, right? You'll have those guys who are trying, like I forgot my chain of thoughts. Fuck. I had something. I just forgot about it.
I think the reason why I think it's important is that obviously we're at the stage where, as a developer, I'm also a developer, we have the capabilities to build all sorts of things. All right. And what I see is that
Let me ask
there's
you
a
guys,
common
as developers in your work, sorry to jump in,
Yeah.
as developers in your work, Fabrice, what's the fingerprint of your philosophies, of your guiding philosophies? What is the fingerprint? Because then we can then look at how you then put that fingerprint on something like developing in blockchain. But as a developer, what is your fingerprint of the philosophies that guide you?
Yeah, and I guess this pegs into the question I'm asking. Now, obviously, for me, there's this struggle of assimilating what someone might call Western ways of thinking, and it's encapsulated in the frameworks, the technologies, the idea that this is good and this is not good.
The connotations
This is a
are gonna
good
be there.
architecture because organizing things in these kinds of ways that are separated and doesn't rely on you having to rework them, which are, in common sense, there's that level that things are logically good regardless of your culture. 1 + 1 is 2, whether it's in Zulu, Xhosa, Pedi. Then there's these other caveats of how things are built, which, values are transmitted. I think blockchain is one of them. All right. And for me, that's a struggle I've had as a black developer. I know that there's something that could be different here, and I'm searching for it, and I'm trying to go out there to find, hey, can someone articulate to me, as a black person, as a Congolese person, how do I think about this thing in a way that will make it speak more to me and people from where I come from? And maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe it's not about just us. It's about us tapping into the next evolution of how some of these things should be thought about, that is even universally interesting, beyond it being black. All right? And maybe there's a black component to it that makes it become the next evolution, which is what we typically want to believe, that there's our footprint to add to the tech that is different to what they have done. They've carried the baton at this point of thinking, and given out the uniqueness of our experiences, our challenges, we have this extra footprint. I can't find what that footprint is.
I have to
I
come
think
back.
no, we're all the same.
I have to
actually.
come back. I have to come back to it.
The
then
world
and say
we all
that
the same. If you think about it, the world we all the same, right? It's just that we emphasize and focus more on a certain aspect than the other, right? So if let's say the blockchain, for example, it was built maybe in Europe, right, as you put it, it will be more focused on all these things that he's been focusing on,
European,
and making sure that
philosophy.
those things are the core. Like any other, when you're designing anything, when you're building anything, you have to have your own priorities.
Yeah.
If it was built here in South Africa, it would probably be built the same, but then the fundamental push would be other things.
I have to bring it back
So
to the
it's more
ability. I have to bring it back to
variation in
ability.
the focus of
the
one
focus.
value.
Yes.
Not that there's a new fundamental
No,
thing
just the
that
focus.
would be
Ability.
The
different.
use case, as I put it.
Ability, guys.
Okay.
Ability. As soon as you can paint, we will then see your expression of your person through painting. I can't ask for your expression through painting when you don't know how to paint. You need to be able to paint first for us to see your expression in painting.
No,
So
but the
as soon
assumption
as-
is that black people can code.
Oh no, I'm not
Yeah,
saying
no,
that
no,
we don't know how
that's-
to code.
yeah, so
Right now
that's
we're
like-
assuming.
I'm just saying,
Like,
okay,
yes.
like once we are able to interact with the blockchain the same way in terms of now making protocols as well, I think you said it's too late. You said it's cast in stone already. It's
No,
about
no,
No, no,
really,
definitely
no.
not.
So
No,
we
it's,
could still get our hands
course.
into the
There's new
technology.
blockchains
and-
still
comes
very early, actually.
all day, every day. Yes.
Perfect. So with
Sure.
time, what then we'll see, right, as we start adopting this technology and we make the changes in the bigger regions, our people will want to express themselves in this as well. They will want a blockchain that is uniquely for, because that's what people do. I want mine. I want what works for me and my people are centered around what we like, and then so it will get to a point where you do have. It might
No,
not be
but that's
now
my
because
critique.
it's expensive now.
No, no,
like
but
the cost, and
the-
I don't mean
the
just
critique
monies,
is
but
that
it's,
we are
it's
there.
a high cost.
We actually are there. We are at the point where we have a lot of black developers that have the capability. So it's not, and that's what's a problem for me. We're not on the journey yet where we will still arrive and still see. We're at the point where you and I can sit together and
I
we
don't
have
know.
the fundamental principles.
I don't know how to
to-
make a tech example of this, so let me use music.
Okay.
The successful hip hop artists in South Africa, not most of them, the most successful, right? Some of them have to kind of piggyback on, I wouldn't say cultural appropriation, but have to piggyback on the Western style in South Africa. but
Not the Western style. Be specific. The American.
American style, right? Of hip hop.
American style is
And
not
that-
Western.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
my bad. But then that is kind of what.
Because like the
so right
people
now,
who actually
you
create
guys,
music,
you guys will sit
from
down as
America,
developers.
it's black people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Black
so it's
Americans.
not like
so
it's
so look.
foreign-ish. Yeah.
No, but it's region specific.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now look, as a black developer, you guys are also trying to take up space, but you're trying to take up space in a foreignly robust market. I don't want to say we don't have a market yet, but it's foreignly robust.
But is
So
it really
your
foreign?
Your guys'
'Cause-
it's foreignly robust. I didn't say it's foreign. I said it's foreignly robust. Yes, we have developers, but you guys are developing and you're trying to play on a bigger market than just your country. Are you really guys trying to develop cryptos just for South Africa? Right now,
No,
if
but
you
the-
guys sit down and you develop, is
But
that
that's
what
not
you're looking?
fundamentally the issue, right? That's an issue more of, okay, are we trying to
You're catering.
build something
You're not
for
catering.
the world?
Yeah,
The question
you're
more
it's about
is,
who you're catering for.
are we trying to, in the space of innovation, let's say, I'll take another example that's in tech, agile, all right? Agile is a certain way of working that assumes, okay, cool, if you iterate and speak more with your client and get more feedback and build in small little chunks, you'll build a better product.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the philosophical critiques of a lot of these ways of working is that they're informed by certain biases, right? Certain people believe that when you work a certain way, this is the better outcome.
Mm-hmm.
You maybe will have, let's say, waterfall, which assumes that if you spend more rigorous time investing in the quality of your design, the outcome will be better.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And you'll have other things like test-driven development.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that you should
Trial
try
and
and
error.
focus on your requirements. All right. And from the get-go, focus on testing them and seeing the outcomes.
Yeah.
Now, the question to ask is, at that layer of thinking, when you come in as a black person, knowing that almost all these things were created by, for lack of a better word, Western, white, foreign, etc., I'm struggling to find black people or black communities articulating solutions at that layer. And that's why there's that itch question. Is it that
Who's going to consume it? If you, as a
Right.
black person, make just for
No,
people
it's not about building for black. Let me make it clear.
Uh-huh,
It's not
uh-huh.
about building something for black.
Remember the
When-
mentality.
when-
You're talking about philosophy, which is the mentality behind the building.
Yes,
right?
when these
And
things...
we don't want to put color to it, but we're talking mentality, and let's use region. European mentalities. It's European.
Yeah, but when
markets.
they built it, they didn't say I'm building for European. They said I'm building a
But
way
who
of
consumes
working.
it? Who consumes it?
Everybody does.
Yes,
and
but we consume. Listen, there's things that we consume now, right? We could make our own of those things that like how make it also. People in our country could make products that we take internationally and adopt. We could make them ourselves, but we don't, right? We use things from other nations as well, adopt technologies, products, and all of that. You don't do everything for yourself.
No, but
Why?
but
Because of
that's-
globalization. We're a community as the globe. That's where we're trying to go, isn't it?
Yes, but
So
I think
then
you're missing
obviously-
a fundamental thing here. I'm not trying to focus on something being local or global.
Uh-huh.
I'm focusing on just building a thing. Anything that is built didn't like, for example, all these philosophies of how, for example, are you familiar with the lean method?
The lean.
Lean method, it's a method of, let's say, building more high quality, let's say, products. It's a process
Yes, okay.
method, or Sigma 6, which is a popular one. So you've got a lot of these kind of very kind of technical, but starting from very principled, aka philosophical views
School of
about
thoughts,
how
okay.
things are better done, how people are better organized,
Uh-huh,
or how technologies are better built. They're not fundamentally
Processes, so
built on,
processes.
let's say, maths, like 1 + 1 is 2. They're built on a higher level intuitive view of how things are better, are going to perform better. Now, I'm thinking a lot of these have been built purely, obviously, from, let's say, Western academic thought. Guys coming from Harvard, Stanford, and whatever. There's that bias. And I'm trying to ask myself, why haven't we produced and contributed to that layer of the technology?
I feel like I'm misunderstanding the question
No,
because I keep hearing you
Fabrice,
ask the
you
same
made
thing. I keep hearing ask the same
I know,
thing.
like it's a tangent from what you're talking about. You made a fundamental assumption, which is only a Western
Academic.
or yes, they're the ones who make.
But they're
contributions.
overrepresented. Obviously, we can agree on
Sure,
that.
sure.
So it's
100%.
I'm not saying it's zero,
Okay, cool.
but I'm saying it's not in absolute terms that we have zero not contributed. There's a lot of, in fact, there's a lot of black developers that have contributed to a lot of these things, undoubtedly.
Yes.
The question is the frequency and the amount of it. All right, and maybe
And then let's not focus on why that's the case.
let's focus
on
more on if I today as a black developer
Sure.
were trying to, because that's the question that keeps coming at us.
Cool.
You know, build
What
more
school
fair
of
things,
thoughts rule you?
better
What school of thoughts-
representation. Now I've gone beyond the applications and the thingy. I'm now going deep and asking myself, what does that mean at these other layers of thinking? How do you fundamentally change how we build code in terms of how we work, how processes work, that is black or
Do you think-
South African?
Let me
or-
ask, if you
or
took
is that
someone-
is that an irrelevant question?
No, it's not. If you took someone who was not as exposed, right? And I this is why I say I feel like I'm failing to understand your question because I keep hearing you ask the same thing, which is why I keep coming with the same thing, which is the same answer,
Sure.
which is Fabrice, if we go now and we find someone who's sitting under a rock and we teach them all the tech, just the tech, no school of thoughts, we just teach them the tech. They will have to rely on what was for them in terms of their intrinsic values and in terms of their founding principles. And they're still the same people that we found under the rock. It's just that now they know tech. That person will express themselves explicitly black, that person, because they are untouched by the Western philosophies and from being under the rock. They have the ability
What
to
makes you
still
say that?
to still make the
okay,
technology.
define what
they
you
still
mean.
also feel like fair is fair. You need
Define
to
what you mean by
fair.
express themselves.
So
when
now
they
when we
express
say-
themselves
sorry, when we
using the
say
tech that they've learned, or
Yeah, but now when you say we're looking for that fingerprint, remember we said what would it be that you add to the technology to say that this is the Ubuntu fingerprint or this is me being black in the tech, right?
Then let's do this
They
then.
would then be able to show you this is me being black.
give me
in
an
the tech.
example.
No,
I can't,
before
because we
because
all
that-
couldn't.
before
Yeah,
that.
we all couldn't put the
Let's
fingerprint.
try
yeah.
to answer Fabrice's question.
Someone
For me,
untouched by Western would be able to show us a non-Western,
No,
like
no, 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 no,
non-Western
no, 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 no.
concept.
Forget
I
ab-
think like that.
You have a point.
Yeah,
Actually, you have a
untouched
point.
would be easy.
Because it's
but-
going to tie up to what I'm trying to say, which is saying, like, it's the creator, right, Fabrice? You highlighted it's the creator. The main thing is about the creator. So when Linus was trying to build Linux or trying to build Git, mainly he was trying to solve a particular problem that was affecting him, right? He solved it, and then people went. Then it went open source, and then it went out. And then you did whatever it did. Same thing, I guess you can say for most of the creators that we have out there. They're trying to solve a problem that affects them, and then afterwards, or something they love. Whether it affects them, something they love, something they're passionate about, they're trying to solve that. So if we can have, and then obviously it was adopted by everybody and then it becomes international or whatever the case. Now, from a South African standpoint, if we can have we do have a lot of those people that are creating stuff that are affecting them or affecting the community, but then it doesn't go, not a lot of them go boom, but then some do, right? Cool. Especially in the education sector. We do have those innovations that we do have that actually go international, right? But then the main thing is about, okay, cool, I'm solving this thing. If I do it long enough, or if I'm doing it, obviously, if me as a creator, when I'm doing something, I'm doing it based on what I know, based on my personality, based on everything that I've consumed, African, whatever the philosophy that I have. Once I have built that, whether it scales or not, it depends on the bigger stuff. It depends on people, how people consume it, whether it's the whole community, how the global community consume it, how the whites, how the blacks sees it. But then I've created something based on what I perceive as a problem for me or problem for other people.
Here's a challenge. If you go away from the question of the problem, the solution, to the tools of how the solutions are articulated. So fair enough.
Cool.
I can take, all sorts of tools, Russian, white, and I'm using these in general terms.
Because you'll have the same problem, right? You'll have the same problem.
But I can solve it differently.
No. It's the audience, which is one other aspect I want you to jump into.
Yeah.
I can solve the same problem right now, and then maybe I don't have the marketing, whatever the case may be, to get it global. Somebody in the US, whatever, can do the same thing, same solution, but then somehow it booms.
Okay, cool.
So sometimes,
that
sometimes
could be an exposure. There's those limitations.
Yes.
But here's my critique on your view is that Linus, when he was creating Linux and Git, had a problem, and he went about solving it using certain tools as an input.
Sure.
So he was informed by his academia, his experience, and then he has a certain idea. A lot of it will be, I'll call it in the solution, there is the technical layer, of which whether you black, white, whatever, there's electronics, there's ones and zeros.
Yes, it's the how. The how
exactly. And there's the innovation he makes there, and that's probably 90% of why he's brilliant and why he's great. But then there's this other layer, which is informed by a lot of his philosophical thinking, his view of what constitutes a good way of building this, whether should I use file systems as a basis for all of this, or should I use this? There's this mystical, maybe hard to articulate layer of how he thinks based on, let's say, even his religion, based on all sorts of things, And my issue is that now as a black person, when I come in, what I feel is happening a lot more is that layer of the solution seems to be it seems to be taken from other people. Let's say another example is the difference between frameworks and applications. The difference between the blockchain protocol and the applications you build on it. It feels like where we're at, maybe it's still early stage, we're just building a lot of applications solving our problems, which is a lot of what I think you're articulating to. I'm saying that I'm not seeing a lot of protocol layer thinking from coming out of our community that matches.
So I'm mainly trying to say charger.
Yeah.
Cool. So what I'm trying to say, for me, I'm saying, yes, that's happening, right? We're not seeing the fundamental, like that's why I said, let's forget about the use cases. Let's forget about what you build on there. Let's focus on the protocols. If we only focus on the protocols, I would say, yes, somebody can build it. Okay, let's not talk about hypotheticals, but let's speak about what we have right now. Most of the Bitcoin, that blockchain protocols that we have right now, you'll say they are Western. Why are they not African, right? Different story for another day. But maybe that's where you need to go into. Because now we can build those things. We have the ability to build those things.
Feel like I'm
just that
on something very
we
far.
focus on something else at the moment.
Okay.
I think I might touch on something very far and say that we need to maybe look at the initials, the seedling. When we plant the school of thought into, like the people that can develop, how are they taught? The system in which they are taught. The technology that we have been taught there's no way to kind of contextualize it into South Africa, make technology South African, so that your expression of your genius in being able to create protocols and all that holds true to just South African philosophies.
There is a layer. That's why I say there's that 90% which is universal. For example, I'll give you a simple example. All right, you can take a physics problem.
Yeah.
All right, the principle is the same as Newton's first law. F equals ma. That's not going to change.
Yeah.
But the examples you use can be different.
Yeah.
You can say that Shaka Zulu took a spear and threw it at Dingani, and it hit him on this thing.
But then you see, because
and then or you can
not
take
that
that
inclusive.
you were skiing in the Alps on whatever. So I'm trying to say that
Education's
there
not
is
that
a layer.
inclusive.
There is a layer of this thing that can be
because education
South African
because
or
it's
not.
not inclusive. Education's not inclusive. Your thinking isn't developed in terms of Dingane and Shaka. It's developed in terms of globalization, in terms of the bigger market, which is why when you express at the end of the day, it won't be the fundamentals will align with that of how were you taught what you were taught. How were you taught what you're taught? The examples that were used and. If in your teachings of the technologies that are the same, if your teachings of it was...
No. It's like those fundamentals things that we use.
He's saying the 10%. That you're saying the 10%,
Yeah,
right?
yes,
specifically
for
for
them,
science,
like,
for STEM.
yes,
It's like
it
you can't
doesn't
argue
matter, right?
Newton's
Those
law is
fundamental
Newton's
things.
law. It's
Sorry.
not. It's not a globalization Newton's law. It's not an African Newton's law.
That's
It's not
another thing. It comes back to the individual, right? You're exposed to the science, you're exposed to whatever.
Yes.
But then you as an individual, let's say Newton, you speak about Einstein. For them, it was, okay, cool, I understand. I know this physics, I know this chemistry, I know these basics, right? But then I'm trying to solve that problem for me, right? That was the question I'm trying to solve. After they solved it, in the academia world, recognized, and then it became the thing, right? If you think about it, weird scenario, there could have been another person somewhere in Africa doing the same thing
And
getting...
it didn't propagate out. Yes, it didn't propagate out as much.
Yes, so there's a lot of aspect to it to say, yes, this person was published, this one was not.
But then you see,
We all know.
there's many.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
So you're saying the black school of thought is there, it's just that it's not in the forefront. It's subdued to some point. It's not the most popular.
In as much as it's a
not the
popular
most-
thing for me to agree with you, Bongs, I disagree because I think that we're in a very, very open space right now. A lot of innovation happening, especially there are a lot of guys building. If there was a lot of that, there would have been signs for it. Like, I mean, there's many ways you can conspire. The system is blocking X, Y, Z. But I think, honestly, like, especially in technology, there is a lot of, obviously, preferences. We know the dominance of Silicon Valley, the startups that are funded, etc.
Sure.
But I'm very convinced that if there were a lot of black people thinking at this layer,
It's a question I also ask myself.
it's a hard
almost
thing
every
to
day.
actually disprove.
So every time I
because
try,
I can't say I've seen everything.
Every time I try to attend, let's say, Ethereum meeting, most of those people are European people. Yes, there's African people there, but then if you look at the Zoom meeting or whatever, most of them are like European.
Yeah.
If you do the same thing, attend the Bitcoin meetings or the Cardano meetings, they're like that. Every time I jump into
even
the meeting,
European, a specific version, because
yes,
it's also
a specific
like
version.
they're all the same. Yeah.
Sure. Every time you attend those meetings, you'll be like, but then where are my fellow Africans? Those kind of stuff.
Guys, education.
I don't know.
And it's that thing, and
Education
when you
puts a
have the
filter
black,
on your
let's say it
thinking.
like it is. And when you
Guys-
have the black guy, he's maybe doing the UI, or like no, I mean like. Okay, maybe that's wrong. Or maybe that should not
Guys,
be,
look, man, look.
But that's the thing that's annoying, and you see
Education
it there,
puts a filter. Education puts a filter because
Sure.
it kind of it's not. I don't want to put it in the negative connotation. Use a word with the negative connotation, but it doctors your thinking. That's what education does, right? It doctors your thinking, We
Okay.
can trust your train of thought because you've gone to school, and we can trust that you can put 1 and 2 in order.
Not education, but then
You mean
the system.
of education? Because
Yes.
Okay,
The
all right.
one
system
can
of
sit
education.
online and be
Yeah,
educated
sure.
and not
All right.
necessarily
Let's say
be
the system
doctored
of
or
education,
programmed.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say something that's just, it's very crude, but I'm going to blow it out the water. Guys, you Model Cs. This is why there's no real black expression.
He's
in
not
your
Model
parts
C.
Of your, what's her name?
I'm not Model C. My English is crap.
I feel like he is. And you might not see it because he's like a teared down Model C from
That's
you.
evidence you did
And-
not listen
and-
to episode 1. All right,
fair
and
enough.
maybe that could be a
Fair
nice
enough.
place for us to
to
drop
end,
it.
yeah. I need to go do my research
And,
on what a
uh,
Model C is, actually. But from where I sit,
Sure.
and the little I know of having been called a Model C my whole life, I can tell you, guys, we're privileged. And I think that's great and everything. But we have to then understand that even without you actually going out and intending to, you really are trying to keep up with the world.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, and that's at the end of the day that kind of limits how strong or dark the African fingerprint will be on our progress, because the more African you make it, the more like singled out it will be. But if you make it like, to play the same tune that everybody's playing at, you're more likely to be adopted, and you're you're more likely to be part of the global community. So you don't want to out yourself by making it so unique, too unique. And honestly, the thinking has been filed down. That's why I say the school, the education system does put a filter on your blackness. It puts a filter on your region to say that we should, from all parts of the world, all walks of life, be able to come together and work together. But to do that, our thinking needs to be aligned.
That's a wrap.
There we go.
All right, there we
Yep.
go. All right, awesome. All right.